Hi guys, you've been Century and welcome back to another video, and today we are going to be reviewing the story Full Circle. Now Full Circle is part of season 18 and it's one of the the first of the three stories from the E-Space trilogy. So over the next couple of weeks I'm going to just review each of them one by one. So obviously we start with Full Circle. So to start off, this is Tom Baker's last season, so obviously his costume designer changed, and Romana was in this, but like it had kind of changed a lot, like the intro and all that. So it was very different to the season, and in this season, Tom Baker didn't really care very much for the stuff that he was in. So in this story, you can see a bit where Tom's not caring very much, and he just doesn't really want to be there. You also in the story got Adric, who's in this, who gets introduced in this, and this is the first time Adric's ever in the Doctor Who. A lot of people don't like Adric because he's annoying and not a good character, which I agree with. I think Matthew Waterhouse, the actor who plays him, isn't very good. But the actual premise of the story is the Doctor and Romana get sucked into E-Space as by a random anomaly and get sucked into E-Space, then land on this planet, which is the planet that the stories are based on. And on this planet, these people who live in E-Space are like trying to survive, but every 100 years or so these marsh men come out of the marsh and start like attacking them, so the people have to go back into their spaceship, which they've kind of like evolved as like their main base, and like hide in there for a couple of years. I went into this one not expecting much. I knew that a fan of the show had wrote this story. I think it's Andrew Smith. Yeah, Andrew Smith wrote this, and I knew he was a fan of the show because of a documentary on it, on like season 18 that I'd seen. But I wasn't going into it expecting very high things, because I had heard overwhelmingly positive things about Full Circle. But I was pleasantly surprised. I thought it was a good episode, as he seemed to know how to deal with the characters very well, which makes sense if he was a fan, that, he'd be able to, write for characters such as Tom Baker and Lola Woods, because they have been characters in Doctor Who before, so he would have seen how to write them a little bit, and maybe not how to not write them, basically. However, the one downside I would say about this is another story in Tom Baker's earlier on, called Face of Evil, is very similar to this, and I think when you match them, it is quite surprisingly similar, because in both stories you meet a new companion. The Doctor's obviously quite a big role in the story, and the villain turns out to be not exactly a villain, and all of those facts just kind of make you go, well, is he just kind of reusing this story and tweaking it a bit so that he doesn't see that it's pretty much the same story? Maybe a little bit. I wouldn't necessarily say that it's a, shot for shot recreation or anything like that. It's not close, but I just think the ideas of Full Circle he's definitely cherry picked the best bits of Face of Evil and stuck them in. But when we actually get to like the supporting cast and all that, and the actual threat, the Marshmen, they do seem to lack a little bit. I think the Marshmen as characters, as like villains at least, are very meh, because the first 3-ish episodes, like until part 4, they don't really do very much, and then in part 4, when you think, oh, this is like the final, they're going to wrap things up, the Marsmen break into the ship. And then that's they cause some mayhem, kill a couple guys, and then the Doctor kind of resolves it. and you think, well, we've had this kind of like three part build up. You think the four parts gonna like resolve everything, but it's not executed well, and it makes you think there was a lot more build up to this bit where you've build up to this point, and then you've kind of just gone, I'll do with the whatever, and I think in classic Who this is worse because in the new series show, if you have a story such as Power of Three, for example, Power of Three has a great story up until the resolution, and I don't think they really knew how to just bring all the bits together and tie everything up, and they kind of had an awful ending. However, that's only like 10-15 minutes, and you watch half an hour of pretty good stuff. This is an hour and a half long, and the last 20 to 25 minutes of this is them trying to quickly tie this up, and it's not done that well. I think another thing with this one is, I don't know why Andrew Smith, when he wrote this, tried to do this. I don't know if this was scripted a little bit to accommodate for this, but it does seem that Adric shouldn't have been the main character in this story. In this story, Adric doesn't really look like he obviously looks like he fits as part of the people. Like, he makes sense to be part of the group, but he never looks like he should really become a companion. He doesn't necessarily interact with the Doctor, or like he interacts with Romana a little bit, but he doesn't seem like he would become a companion. And I think you see that in State of Decay and Warrior's Gate, which later on will come to, because Romana, as the character Romana, seems to be quite peed off that he's there. It's just kind of like, I don't really want to be there. And Lala Ward doesn't make it any easier. You can tell that both Tom and Lala would both wanting to leave. And in this story, when Adric comes in and pretty much straight to Warrior's Gate, and for Tom, Logopolis, they didn't want to be there when any other times we're filming it. There's even a couple of times in Warrior's Gate where I'm pretty sure Lala Ward's rolling her eyes because Matthew Waterhouse is just not acting well, which is obviously always going to be a drawback of him, because I think it doesn't matter who you are in terms of Doctor Who fan. If you watch Adric and you ask someone, even if they like Adric as a character, they will most likely say that the weakest part about him is the fact that Matthew Waterhouse doesn't seem to act very well as the character. But that means that it does impact the story when you go to the point where he kind of does things where you might question, such as he runs away and he leaves Romana outside and tries to pilot the TARDIS to escape and leaves Romana. And in some situations you might say, oh, he's just scared, he was just trying to escape and not really be captured by these Marshmen. But because he's acting so bad, he just seems a bit it just doesn't come off as he was genuinely scared. He just seems like he was like, let's just do it, and it doesn't work for me. Overall, I think it's a decent story. It's an okay way of introducing the East Base aspect. I do think the new series should try and go back to East Base, because it would allow writers a lot of creative freedoms, such as how a lot of time in the new series in London has been invaded and stuff like that. I think it could let you have a lot of things could happen. Like, you could make some high stakes in East Base, which wouldn't impact Earth or Gallifrey or Skaro or like other established planets in Doctor Who, because East Base is a separate entity, similar to how the Doctor's wife house had that little bit outside of the universe, which wasn't East Base, but like a little bit outside the universe. Similar to that, he could have done whatever he wanted on that planet, because it didn't necessarily affect our planet. So East Base could have some sort of universe-destroying bit. However, that wouldn't necessarily affect Earth, so the stakes might be higher, because the writers could technically, kill off this East Base a little bit more, and the stakes are definitely more there, because there would be no way that the Doctor Who would ever be able to kill off Earth or Skaro or Gallifrey kind of things, because realistically, that universe is where the Doctor lives, and obviously exists. So you can't really destroy that world. So there'd be no stakes, like in Stolen of Journey's End. Davros was never gonna do what he said with the reality bomb, and you knew that he was never going to succeed, because it would destroy all of the universe, and then it would be pointless. It would be the end of the show, and it wouldn't work. But yeah, that's just been my thoughts on Full Circle. Hopefully, going and watching the next ones, such as State of Decay and obviously Warriors Gate, they will be more impressive, because I think so far, from my viewing experience, this one's probably the weakest of the three. But yeah, we'll get there. But if you have enjoyed, please like and subscribe. And yeah, see you.